Welcome to the Daddyhood Rocks podcast with John Wolford and Brandon Miller. We are here to encourage you, empower you, and strengthen you so you can engage, level up, and have fun being a dad. We are going to have guests, deep conversations, hilarious stories, and insights that will give you the strength you need so you can be the dad you gotta be. And now, here are your hosts, John Wolford and Brandon Miller.
Welcome to another episode of the Daddyhood Rocks podcast. We are excited about this episode. This was completely unlike any episode we've done thus far for many different reasons. For one, the turnaround time is really a lot shorter. This was recorded on a Friday, and we're spitting this thing out Sunday morning. John, we're spitting this out because it's Mother's Day this coming Sunday. And this episode, we don't have just one guest. We don't just have two guests. We have three guests. Really great with math. And these are some of our previous guests who have been on our podcast with great stories, great things they've been able to share about their lives as dads. And so now we had this roundtable discussion on honoring the women in our lives. Definitely. So for me, just real quick, then I'll pass it to you, John. So I talked about my wife, she's the one who made me a dad, and she's just an amazing, grace-filled woman. I love her dearly. My mom, who has passed when I was 18, just a tenacious, resilient woman. And then also I would be remiss to not mention my mother-in-law, Kim. She is also a picture of resilience and just reinventing yourself. She had, years ago had gone back to school, got into physical therapy. She teaches at a community college. She does practice as a therapist, physical therapist, and she's an amazing mom. And she is so creative, adventurous, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful woman. I'm very grateful to have her in my life. So, John, who are the women that during our episode, who do you honor?
Yeah, I mentioned my three grandmothers. For those of you that don't know, I've got a step grandmother who is just as much grandma as my real grandmas. I mentioned my mom, and then I mentioned my wife. But a couple others that I didn't mention, not on purpose. It just kind of happened that way, I promise. One is my mother-in-law, who has been just as much a support for myself and Chelsea throughout my schooling. I mean, she has been here almost daily. If I'm gone for school, my mother-in-law is here helping take care of the twins. She loves being a grandma, loves being a mom, and she does great at both. And then one that is a little bit unusual is my ex-wife. I just want to give my ex-wife a shout out. If it wasn't for my ex-wife, I wouldn't be a dad. Simple as that. And though we might not get along 100% of the time, we might not agree on everything 100% of the time. Obviously, we're divorced. But she has done well to raise my little boys to be great young men. And if it wasn't for the time that she spent with them, nurturing them, they wouldn't be who they are they wouldn't be the caring, loving, just calm little boys that they are, calm, cool, collected little boys that they are. So I'd like to give a shout out to my ex as well.
That's awesome. Let's go ahead and get this thing started. And really, it was kind of a party. Great group of guys, great stories. And this is for Mother's Day. Welcome to another episode of the Daddyhood Rocks podcast. This is an amazingly special episode. We are not talking about dads or daddyhood this week. This is our Mother's Day special. Never really thought we'd call it a Mother's Day special, but man, moms are special people. And we have an opportunity here to bring back some of our previous guests for kind of a roundtable conversation about moms, whether it's your own mother, whether it's your wife or the mother of your children, grandmothers, So this is an opportunity for us to just kind of, I'll kind of pass the ball around, ask some questions, and this will be our chance to bring some honor and put these wonderful women in the spotlight. So I asked our guests to, for the women they want to honor today, to quick introduce them. This is like the lightning round at the beginning. So each of you guys can introduce the women in your life you want to honor. I'm going to go ahead and kick things off. So I want to honor 2 women today. First of all, my mom. She passed away when I was 18 years old. And I brought out my corncob pipe, not because my mom smoked a pipe, although, I mean, maybe she did. I don't know. There's a lot of things about her I don't really know. But she was born in the hills of Appalachia in Virginia. I come from a long line of bootlegging hillbillies. So I want to honor her for her.
That explains a lot.
It does. Her resilience and her love for music and her love for family. And I want to honor my wife, Kara, who's an amazing mom to our boys, Xander and Alistair. She's also a picture of resilience. And also, she's the most grace-filled, loving person I've ever met. I mean, look at me. I mean, how many times I screw up and step on toes. She's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And so we'll have some stories about my mom, Betty Miller, and Kara Miller, my wife. So, John, I'm going to pass the ball to you. In a quick nutshell, go ahead and introduce the woman you want to honor.
Yeah, I have a lot to choose from, but quick, my 2 grandmothers, actually 3 grandmothers. I have a step-grandmother who I call grandma as well, just as much my grandma. My mom, who didn't always have a great relationship with, but do now, thankfully. And then obviously my wife, who has supported and guided me through school and everything else, all those stresses of life. So yes, those are the 5 women that I would like to honor.
That's awesome.
And I'll go ahead and I'll pass it down to Nate because he's right below me.
Okay, right. Well, okay. Yeah. So, John, I actually, I first and foremost, my mom, whom it's interesting you say, all the things that you and I seem to have in common. My mom and I, we also had kind of a rocky relationship for a while there. But she's my rock, she's, she and I really put it back together here in the last few years and, going through all my stuff, with the military and, through law school and all that, my mom's been just such a huge supporter and, I'm always, being a father of a little girl, I'm always calling her up like, hey, is my kid broken? Like, what does it mean when they do this? Like she's just a constant supply of insight and wisdom, and so she's right at the top of that list. And then with that is my my mother-in-law, who, she and I have obviously not known each other quite as long, but she's, right up there with the support and, the kindness and the love and the, always looking out for me and the family here. And, I don't see a way that I could have made it through the last few years without her in my corner. And then my wife of 4 weeks now, who somehow I managed to convince her to shackle up with me. She's awesome. She's the best, always looking out for me, putting me and the family ahead of herself, always, always there for me to bounce ideas off of. And, she's just, I feel like a lot of times I'm playing checkers and she's playing chess. I mean, she's just no idea what she's doing with me. She's better in all the ways possible. And I, when you invited me to be a part of a Mother's Day special and you asked me to think about what mom in my life do I need to, give praise to, I mean, it's her. Absolutely. My God.
That's cool. Very cool. Man, Ryan, what about you, man?
First off, my wife, because she's, my kid's a stepmom, and like I said when I was on here before with you guys, she chose to be a mother for them and in their life, and that takes a lot. And with that, her mom, my mother-in-law, since I've known them, her, and My father-in-law even have treated me just like any of the other kids, and have been loving and friendly and helpful, extremely helpful. And then my mom, because she always put up with me as a kid.
I'm sure that was tough.
Hey.
Sorry.
And my grandma, because she was just as loving and nurturing as little Linda Lou could be.
Dennis Day Jr., who do you want to honor today?
My mom, because my mom has been the one constant that's been in my life for as long as I've been around. She's always there if I need someone to talk to, if I need help with something. The most non-judgmental person you'll ever meet. I mean, she may not always have agreed with the things that I've done, the choices I've made in life, but regardless of how she feels, she's always been there as a means of support. My wife, who is, well, she and I don't always see eye to eye. We don't always get along. We still are there for each other. We know how to step up. She knows how to step up when need be and stuff. Like case in point, about 2 weeks ago, as of this recording, I injured my knee while I was at work, and it left me with and to this day, still can't walk fully correctly. Brandon, I know you're thinking of something funny to say, so I'll leave it at that. But she really stepped it up the first couple of days when it was hard for me to get around and stuff. Like she took her mornings off work so she could take our son to school. She was like, if I needed something, she would grab it for me, things like that. So very supportive, very patient with me. And then, of course, being the mom to, my amazing son, Matthew, who just turned 6, she'd be one of those things where if I had a chance to go back and rewrite history, I wouldn't do it because I wouldn't have the things that I do today. So, and then my mother-in-law, because she really is my son's best friend. That Grandma Kepner is Matthew's best friend. Grandma Kepner has been there so much for us in terms of when we needed someone to babysit because we're both working. If the two of us wanted to go do something for a night out, she's there. Basically, she's very influential, and just helping us get him potty trained, helping him learn to read and to write and stuff. She works a lot with him, and she absolutely loves him unconditionally to death, and he worships the ground she walks on. And I mean, like I said, I really look at her, like you said, much like my wife. I don't always get along with my mother-in-law, but she's such an amazing person. And like I said, she's my son's best friend.
Man, that's awesome. And I will, for now, withhold my smart aleck remarks because, those women you mentioned, Dennis, are pretty amazing. And So here's the next round of questions, something I want you to think of. So, no, not you. Okay, so there comes a point. So I want you to pick one of the women now for this story. So you don't need a story for each woman, just one woman. The first time that you really recognize that she was a badass, that she was really like a tough woman, tougher than nails, would run through a brick wall for you, that sort of thing. So, and it could be a funny story, could be a serious story, but that first time when you realize, man, she is a force to be reckoned with. So think about that. So for me, real quick story, and again, try to tell the story in as much fullness as possible with brevity at the same time, and that's especially for me and you too, Nate. I'm kidding. So, hey, you said it, man. You said you get paid by the words. So no. So here we go. So when I was 8 years old, first day of summer vacation, my brother and my best friend and I, we went mouse hunting, and because we were bored already. Day one of summer vacation, kind of a sad thing. And this field had this billboard sign in the middle of the field, and we went mouse hunting. We lifted up this sign up on one side to look for mice, and we saw a couple, but we couldn't reach them with the weapons we brought with us. So my brother said, "Hey, why don't we drop the sign so we could smash the mice?" So I don't think the mice got smashed, but it broke my femur. Your leg bends this way, I hyperextended it, broke my femur. So I was 8 years old. It was right after second grade. And that really took up the entire summer, being in traction, being in a hideous body cast and learning to walk again. But my mom, she was no more than 4'10". I mean, she was petite, but she was fierce and feisty, and you definitely didn't mess with her. And so my dad, of course, at that time, he was on his second career at that point, so he was working at a coal mine. So my mom, being a domestic engineer, aka homemaker, it was her job to take me in my body cast wherever we needed to go. So here's this petite woman carrying me, an 8-year-old boy, in this huge body cast. I don't know if my mom on the side, did some bodybuilding or what, but she carried me wherever I needed to go for a good month and a week. And I remember just thinking, man, I think I'm kind of heavy, but my mom's carrying me. This is pretty amazing. So that's my story there. So gonna go in the same order just to keep it easy to remember. So John, what's your story?
Yeah, so there's a lot I could pick, but I remember this so well. My grandmother, who also was 4'10", 4'11", maybe. At the time of this story, she was probably 75, maybe just a little bit younger. There was two guys talking at a baseball game, and they were talking about my uncle, if you've watched previous episodes, you've seen Coach Mike Lightfoot. I grew up calling him Uncle Mike. And he was a basketball coach. And two guys were talking about at a baseball game about how they got cut from the basketball team and how this coach was just awful and he's a horrible person and blah, 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 blah. And here comes 4'10", 4'11" grandma walking up to this 6'5" probably basketball player and puts her finger in his chest and goes, "You better watch who you're talking about because that's my son." Not her son, by the way, but I do recall that finger poke. That's my son, because that's about as close as Grandma had to an extra son. Was Mike Lightfoot, and they're talking horrible things about this coach, and she was just not having it. So Grandma was in fact a badass.
Yeah.
Nate.
I'm going to shine a light on my own mom, and so many awesome stories for me to choose from, right? Because like my mom, single mom, we grew up like pretty poor, and like not in a great part of, not in a great area. It was Western Pennsylvania, a little bit south of Pittsburgh, and my mom works as a waitress. Like I have a story about her, like telling off Ozzy Osbourne, when he came in after a show and tried to get fresh with her, and like, just so many awesome stories about my mom being just a gritty little hard ass. But the one that stands out to me, like, when Brandon was saying, like, the time when the light sort of turned on, like, yo, my mom is like an Amazonian, right? Was my mom was dating this dude. He was a complete idiot, and he had one of those those hammer light construction tools where you put like the 22 in there and you hit it with the hammer and it puts the nail in. So he had just gotten one of those, and he was like showing it off to my mom. I don't know why. They're in the basement, and he was like showing her how he was going to do this new construction job or whatever, and he did the thing, and a piece of the steel somehow like ricocheted out and hit my mom right in the leg, like bang. It was like basically like she got shot with a 22, at close range. It was gnarly, and she like put duct tape on it and didn't go to the hospital because she didn't have insurance, and like didn't miss a shift, waitressing at her restaurant. And like was still at my little league game the next day, and like, so she ended up having to go to the doctor, obviously. Like, we as adults are hearing the story. We're like, okay, your mom kind of dumb for that too. She did end up having to go to the doctor, obviously. And by the time she got there, whew, but to think she was walking around on that thing, for like a week, and I was like, dang, my mom is a badass, dude. Like, I would be crying, but mom was tough for sure.
Man, Amazonian. I like it. All right, Ryan, what about you? What's the story, man?
My wife too. We took our kids to it's called Lewis's Farm. It's like a orchard and a farm and amusement park for kids here in Michigan. And a little boy was on this jumping thing, and he pushed my son down. He was quite a bit bigger than my son, and I've never watched my wife flip a switch that quick. Just mama came out of her real quick. And I just kind of was like, okay.
Don't mess with mama.
No.
That's awesome. Dennis, what's your story?
This is probably like my favorite story of my mom. I was about, I think, 8, maybe 9 years old. Super Mario Brothers 2 had just come out for the Nintendo system, and being a big video game, and the Nintendo at the time, like, I was all about that, and I was so excited to play. But every time my mom would take me to the local video store to play, they were out of it. Like, every time. We would even be like, hey, can you call us when a copy comes? It's like, we had no luck whatsoever. I got so dejected, and I was just so upset and everything because I really wanted to play this game. So one day, my brother and I and my mom, and my brother and I were in the back seat of my mom's car, and we went to Kmart when those were still around. And she tells me and my brother just to stay in the car. She'll be right back. So they're sitting there waiting. I'm not, thinking anything of it. Then a few minutes later, she comes out, and she's got a bag, and she hands me the bag, and I go to look in the bag, and I open it, and it's a copy of Super Mario Brothers 2. It was like the first time that I realized, like, my mom is an awesome badass, because it's like this game I've been dying to play for, to the point where I was driven to tears because the video store never had it. She went and, unbeknownst to me, just went to the store, grabbed a copy, and gave it to me and stuff, and it's just like that right there to emphasize just how selfless and how caring a person my mom is, and like how it really just, when I think about it even now, more so being where I am, where I'm a dad, it just really makes me realize how selfless, my mom really was, and how she continues to be that to this day.
Yeah, I love that.
That made me think of something. Growing up in the '90s, video games, I'm still a nerd. I remember as a kid going to my mom and telling her about the video game I was playing that day or whatever, and she would just sit there and listen. Now that I'm 30 and thinking back on it, I'm just like, she probably didn't care, but she sat there and listened anyway. It's a mama's love.
Yep, exactly.
Moms are good like that. That's cool. All right. So now kind of the next round of questions. So this question I want you to think of is just something that one of these moms in your life, something that just made you proud, whether it's an accomplishment of hers, maybe something she overcame, something like that, just something you were proud of. I want to talk about my wife, Kara. She's always, Dennis, you can attest to this. My wife, Kara, and Dennis were classmates in Aurora, Illinois. And Kara has always just been an amazing student. I mean, she works hard. She's diligent. She's intelligent. And just, she has to put in the work, but she gets stuff. She just has this brain that captures things. And it's just kind of scary. And so don't tell her that either. Here within the last 2 years, Kara she has her master's, and she's in the field of education. So Kara has her master's. She's now working on her doctoral program in special education, and seeing her, push through stuff that is really tough, the late nights, the still being present with our boys, being creative in how to juggle both at the same time. She is just really, I'm so incredibly proud of my wife for really excelling in her program, overcoming obstacles, and enjoying what she's doing.
Yeah, my wife has been an absolute rock star. Mine goes also very present. I exited the Army in 2017 and had a couple relationships, but I've been in school for 4 years. and I didn't have support until I met my wife. And the support that I've had in school, making sure that I get my homework done. There was a paper that I forgot about that she remembered at one point. And she has just been absolutely fantastic. And so it was my honor this past weekend, actually, to have her sit with me at graduation to observe social distancing. But I actually got to sit with my wife at graduation. Nursing school, as it is a tough endeavor. To add twins to the mix, to add buying a new home to the mix, to add buying this house to the mix, everything that we've had gone on, and the twin pregnancy wasn't easy either, plus my own medical issues. My wife is, we can go back to the last question, just grade A badass, because she has managed a home of anywhere from 4 to 6 kids at a time and has done an amazing job doing that.
Similarly, my wife, she is she took in my daughter as her own, and seeing the relationship that those two have forged over the last couple of years, I mean, it warms my heart. It really does. Dinners and, taking care of the HOA, and, we just bought this house, and making sure that I'm getting sleep and getting what I need to be ready for what I got the next day. I mean, she made this family like her thing, her project. And it's so awesome to see that, because when I met her, she was just a, single woman out there living her best life. And I sort of like plucked her out of that and threw her in this domesticated role. And so seeing her thrive is kind of awesome. And then on top of that, she's got her own career, and she's like landing down these big, 6-figure contracts, dealing with multi-million-dollar companies every day. But then she's still remembering to send me a text that, hey, how'd your hearing go today, honey? It blows my mind. So, it's great having a strong, resilient woman like that in my corner.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ryan.
My wife, when I first met her, she had been working where she was at previously for, 15 years, something like that. She'd been there a while. We decided to go out of the 1-bedroom apartment into a bigger house that fit me, her, and our kids. And she got a job offer at a different salon, and that was a big step for her to take. In the meanwhile, trying to learn a new skill in her, and she grinded and just prepared for that class that she had to take for that, and to get her certification for that. And I don't know, it made me proud to watch her be so committed to that, to her trade, and take the step to go somewhere new to grow, where she could grow more instead of just being as she was. And she wasn't really happy at that particular salon. And watching her go there and thrive, and now she boasts about, I sold this much, or I did this much, made this much money this week, and you're like, that makes me proud of her and happy for her, and I enjoy seeing that.
No, that's awesome. Dennis, how about you, man?
My wife, going back to when we first met and started dating, she was the exact opposite of just about every other woman I had ever dated, because it's like she accepted me for who I was. She didn't expect me to change. She loved me for who I was, But it took me a while to figure that out, because I'd been so used to kind of always getting the raw end of the deal. And Brandon, your wife can attest, because your wife can attest that, because your wife was one of, was there for me, through some of those dark ages. And it was so bad to the point where I was so scared by how well things are going. I ended it prematurely, because I'm thinking, okay, it's going to end like, every other relationship I've been in. Why don't I just, save myself the trouble, and end it? So I did. Looking back on it, it was probably one of, if not the stupidest decisions I've ever made in my life. Thankfully, when I came to the realization of that, I talked to her and explained to her what was going on. And, she gave me a second chance, and, I haven't looked back since. I mean, if it, because of her, I got to go to my first Chicago Blackhawks game. I got to go to my first Chicago Bears game. Because of her, I've gotten to meet some of my favorite, professional wrestlers. There's all these things that I've been able to do because of her. The best thing that I've been able to do because of her is be a dad. Mm-hmm. Because back when Kara and I were in high school together, I never thought that any of that stuff that that I'm doing now, I was going to do. Because going through school, I didn't really date a lot, and stuff. I never thought about being a dad. I mean, I wanted to, but I never thought it'd be a realistic possibility. But my wife showed me all these things out there that I didn't think I was ever going to experience. And because of her, I got to experience that. We don't always see eye to eye. We don't always get along. We get on each other's nerves. We fight. We argue, and all that stuff. But it's part of, this thing that we call life and this thing we call marriage. And there are times where I question, when we get into a fight, is this like really worth it? And then I just think about how things would be if she wasn't in my life. And then it snaps me back into reality, because again, like I said, I love my wife to death. I don't always like her, but I can't imagine my life without her. So.
Hey, that's honest, man. That's honest.
Yeah.
Man, thank you, gentlemen, for that round of answers. And I feel like I have like front row seats to just awesomeness. So thank you for sharing. We're going to keep on going a few more rounds.
Well, Brandon, you actually had a somewhat ringside seat to the culmination of my relationship with my wife, because you and Kara were at our wedding,
and that was a pretty darn special wedding too. That was a lot of fun. You guys definitely, yes, you definitely had your own.
Were there turnbuckles?
No.
Was there entrance music?
No,
did anyone dress like the Ultimate Warrior?
In that kind of sense, because we came out, when we got introduced at the wedding reception, we came out to The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News, because I'm a huge Back to the Future fan.
Sure, yeah.
But Brandon can tell, I'll let Brandon tell this story about my wife's wedding vows.
It was very clear that you had twisted her arm.
I had nothing to do with that.
No, I mean, what I remember clearly is that it involved wrestling.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
Yeah. Her wedding vows blew my wedding vows out of the water.
You can say that again, yeah.
Yeah, they did and stuff, but then that's the thing. My wife is, accepts me for me, She may not like all the things I do, the decisions I make, but she still accepts me for me, so.
Yeah, that's the power of an amazing woman there. Humor can be the thing that kind of makes your day worthwhile when you're exhausted at the end of the day. So I want you to think of just some sort of funny story, a funny interaction, whether it was with a grandma, your mom, your wife, whatever, but just where humor was involved. I love to push buttons. I am such a button pusher, and I'm proud of it.
Yes, you are.
Yes, I am. And so to the point of obnoxiousness, but that's okay, because Kara can handle it, and plus some. And so when we were first expecting our first son Xander, we were in the process of coming up with names, and so we'd come up with some really good possibilities, and we would bounce them off each other. And for me, I would come up with some really quality names, like, hey, what about Rib Nibbit Norbert, or Reticula Joan, just all these just bizarre, stupid names. But I pretended like I was really invested in these names. Or we drive by like a sign, heading up, by a town or whatever, and I would say, oh yeah, what about this name? Usually it would end up with like a rib shot, and then that would be it. But between that and just obnoxious button pushing, making fun of her Chicago Bears fandom. Sorry, Dennis. Things like that.
Hey, we finally got our quarterback.
Kara's and my senses of humor mesh really well. And I think at the end of the day, when we're exhausted from dealing with two very high energy, amazing, adventurous boys, we lean back in our recliners, usually with a beer in hand, and we talk about the day. And usually it involves me being a fifth grader, being just stupidly ridiculous, and she loves it, and she loves me for it. John, funny story.
Ryan and Nate know just how important it is to check your corners everywhere you go. And Grandma does not check her corners very well. And there are a lot of corners in her house. And my grandma has the greatest sense of humor of anybody I know, because I hide all over her house. She knows it. She knows it's always coming. Even now at 85, almost 86 years old, I jump out and scare that woman to pieces. In fact, it's a good thing that Depends exists sometimes, I'm pretty sure, because I scare my grandma to pieces. And it's going to be really bad one day when I make her fall down. But it's been going on since, I don't know. I was probably 5 or 6 years old the first time I really got her. The one time that it scared me the most, I didn't realize she was coming up the stairs. I thought she was coming down the hall. And if there wasn't a handlebar there going up the stairs, we would have lost Grandma that day. So wow. Thankfully there was a handlebar there, and Grandma is still with us. But yeah, there's plenty of times, even still to this day, if I'm at Grandma's house, Grandma's going to get scared, and she knows it, but she somehow just doesn't comprehend that that's going to happen.
So my story is about my mom, and again, like I feel like I could tell a lot of stories. My mom is kind of a prankster, and like our thing was always like horror movies. Like we definitely from a young age we bonded over horror movies and scaring the crap out of each other, and she used to terrorize my friends during sleepovers, and she would like encourage me to terrorize my sister's friends, during her sleepovers. It was just great. So a few years ago, when I was, still single dude, I had like my condo, and, it was like a two bedroom condo. My mom came for a visit, it was for a couple of weeks. It was a pretty lengthy stay. It was great. We had a good time and all that stuff. And, I drop her off the airport. She goes back to Texas. So I'm actually like cleaning, I'm pulling stuff out from underneath my bed, and I find this doll. It's I actually have a picture of the doll. I'm going to try to angle this so that you guys can see it on my camera here. So bear with me for just a second, because it's vital to the story.
Okay.
Can you see this?
Hold it closer.
Oh, wow.
That's just a little bit creepy.
Are you able to see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So I pull this doll out from underneath my bed, and I have no idea where it came from. And I'm freaking out. And I go to my daughter's. I'm like, is this yours? She's no. Like, I'm sending my friends like messages like, haha, you got me. Who did it? And they're like, dude, I seriously know nothing about that. For like a month, I'm trying to figure out where this thing came from. And finally, my cousin told me, like, dude, your mom totally got you, man. Like, we found that thing at a yard sale when she was up here visiting Grandma, and she stuck it under your bed. She's been laughing about it for weeks. I mean, and this isn't even the only time that she's done something like this to me. But anyways, that's the kind of stuff she likes to pull.
So this happened to my wife and me. So we got married. We did marriage counseling through our church. We hadn't seen the couple that had done it in forever. So COVID was going on, and we just hadn't seen them. And we went to church, and we seen Terry, and he was the guy in our marriage counseling. And we went and approached him after service, and my wife said, "Hey, how are you?" And he turned around and he shook my hand and shook my wife's hand and said, "Hi, I'm Terry." And my wife looked him dead square in the eyes and said, "No, you're not." The lady who runs the admin side of our church just and walked away. And it took me a minute, and I realized he said, I'm Jerry. And it took me a minute, and I realized Terry said he had a brother. We never said he didn't have a twin. And I realized what was going on, and my wife was very adamant. Your name's not Jerry. And I realized, it's his brother. And I walked away, and my wife finally dawned on her, oh no, I made a mistake. Perhaps about a month, and we see Terry and Diane, and the first thing he says to us is, I heard you met my brother.
Oh, that's
He never
funny.
told us he had a twin. We were both pretty sure it was just him pulling our leg.
And Dennis, what you got in your head, man?
So I got two here. The first one was early on in my relationship with my wife. I was still living in the house that I was in before I moved in with my wife. And a lot of times, if she didn't stay the night at my house, I would just sleep on the living room couch because I had the TV in there, so I would fall asleep with the TV on, whatever. So I slept on the couch, and the couch that I slept on is literally right by the front door. Like where I had my head is like literally right by where the door opens. So, I'm just, sleeping, not thinking of anything. And then all of a sudden I hear like my door open, and I know I locked the door, and I didn't have any idea like who it was and stuff. And literally I was dead asleep, and I heard the door open. I shot up, and I'm yelling. I'm like, who the is here? And all of a sudden I hear my wife. She's like, oh my God, it's me. Because I didn't know she was coming to my house to spend the night. So she just she had a key to my house and stuff. So she, let herself in and I had no idea she was coming. So, and I always tell her, I'm like, thank God we didn't have like a baseball bat or something next to me, because I would have been swinging.
So, guys, here's the last round of things for tonight. And instead of telling each other or our podcast audience this, so direct your words to all of the women that you're wanting to honor. For me, this goes to Kara and to the late great Betty Miller, the amazing pianist, the wordsmith, and just the very caring mama bear that you didn't want to mess with. I wouldn't be who I am if it wasn't for her, and I would not be who I am if it weren't for Kara Miller either. I feel like I've been on an amazing trajectory, a story of resilience and healing and growth. And I'm so thankful for the moms in my life, and even like the moms that I didn't mention here, including my mother-in-law, the grandmothers I never met. And so I'm so grateful for just the family tree full of nuts and berries and wonderful, wacky people. And all the amazing and the tough women who helped formulate who I am today. So that's my story, and that's my message to Kara and to Betty Miller. John.
Yeah, to my grandmothers, thank you for spoiling me an unbelievable amount, and for all the sugar. It's definitely caught up with me. I'm so thankful for my grandmas, who were always there for me, even when my parents weren't necessarily. I'm thankful for my parents, my mom in particular, who talk about resilience, going from a relationship that was basically non-existent and quite frankly almost mentally violent at times, to now what we have. She's getting ready to help throw me a graduation party here soon. Mom, I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for what our relationship has become. But most of all, to my wife, who is Superwoman Extreme, thank you for raising our family when I couldn't. Thank you for being there for our kids when I couldn't be. And thank you for keeping me sane when I am absolutely 100% positively insane. So thank you, honey, for keeping us together, but keeping our crazy anxiety-riddled mind together as well.
Damn, I gotta follow that.
You're on the spot, man.
that was awesome. By the way, that was really nice. Yeah, for let's see, for Pat, my mother-in-law, thank you for the acceptance, the support, the encouragement. To my mom, you know, for showing me what it means to grind and making me believe in myself, even when there was no reason for me to believe in myself. My aunts, Debbie and Barb, you know, for kind of being my second moms, you know, and for always, you know, making their home feel like my home. And for my wife, just all of the love and the support and the encouragement and the, you know, just the strength and the motivation. These women, I'm so blessed to have all these brilliant, amazing, strong women in my life making all of these things possible. I mean, I love my life and they are such a big part of the reason why. So I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to be on the podcast again so that I can put that out there and say, you know, thank you to these amazing women in my life.
Let's see. So my mom, Rhonda, and my grandma, Linda, I want to tell them thank you for putting up with me growing up and the mistakes I made and the choices that I made that they didn't necessarily like, and loving me anyway, and being there for me with the stuff that, you know, we went through. Me and my mom went through together with my real dad. And throw a curveball, I want to say thanks to my second mom growing up, which was Debbie Bonner, because she knew everything going on with my family, and me and her son were best friends growing up, and she made me just as much a part of their family as Justin and Sarah were, and I was blessed to have two moms growing up. And then my mother-in-law, Mary, for being my out-of-state mom. I'm 2.5 hours from my family, and sometimes it's just nice to have that motherly instinct around, and it, you know, living in their house right now while my house is being built. And then the most important one, my wife Jennifer, for putting up with me and my constant mistake making and being my best friend and the person I love the most in the world outside of the kids. And I don't know, I couldn't ask for a better wife.
So, Nate, you were worried about following what John had to say. I have to follow all four of you. So, but I'm gonna start out with my mother-in-law, Vicky. Again, she and I don't always see eye to eye, you know, on things and stuff. But what, you know, I mean, you know the stereotypical son-mother-in-law relationship we've seen on shows like the Flintstones and basically every sitcom or whatever like that. The husband never got along with the mother-in-law. But I've been lucky enough for the most part to get along with my mother-in-law. And for the main reason why I want to thank her is just for everything that she's done for, you know, my son Matthew, helping him with his development, you know, like reading and working with him like on the iPad with like games that taught him his numbers and his shapes and his colors. And I mean, if it wasn't for her, you know, my son Matthew wouldn't at the age of 2 know like the different shapes and things like that. And it's just, he continues to, you know, amaze me with what he knows and stuff. And it's just, and I owe a lot of that to her. I want to thank my mom for being my rock, like the one consistent in my life from the day that I was born. You know, I wish I could say that about my dad, but unfortunately, you know, he's no longer with us. Right. You know, said many times before, my mom has been the one person that has been there for me since day one. And she's really the only person in this world that I can say that about. She's always been there for me. She's always supported me, whether, you know, and that she's always someone I can talk to if I need anything. But I just, you know, I just want to thank my mom for being my mom.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then And then last but definitely not least, my wife. Again, she showed me a lot of the things in life that I thought were going to be impossible for me to experience. She, showed me that they were indeed possible. When I've been down, she's there to take care of me, with my knee injury. And then way back when I had my hernia surgery, she literally waited on me hand and foot for a couple of days because I couldn't really do anything.
Yeah.
Most importantly, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be on this podcast because I wouldn't be a dad.
Yeah.
Brandon, you've had the pleasure of, seeing my son and, seeing how our, your boys and my son always get along when we got together.
Mm-hmm.
Again, none of that would have been possible if it hadn't been for my wife. So,
yeah.
I just, like I said, I thank my mother-in-law for being my son's best friend. I thank my mom for being my mom. And I thank my wife for allowing me to experience things that I probably maybe otherwise wouldn't have ever been able to experience.
Yeah, fantastic. One thought that kept on going through my head listening to all you guys is, here's round 2 for the 3 of you guys, Nate, Dennis, and Ryan, being on the podcast. And I feel like this is just, I feel like we can, you said this last time, Nate, that we can just sit around and drink a beer.
This is like becoming my Friday night tradition already.
Nice.
This is community. I think dads need support. I think this has been great for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like this has just been a beautiful episode, being able to honor the women in our lives. And so, guys, I really greatly appreciate the fact that you carved out time to hang out with us, and that you were willing to share some really amazing stories about some amazing women. So, gents, I think on the count of 3, not to be overly hokey, but I love being hokey. On the count of 3, let's say Happy Mother's Day. I know, shock. So on the count of 3, I'll do a countdown from 3. Let's just say Happy Mother's Day, and then we'll end the episode there. All right, guys. So on the count of 3, 3, 2, 1. Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.
Thank you so much for joining us for our wonderful Mother's Day episode. We're so thankful that we get the opportunity to speak life into the women who have spoken life into us. Brandon, what did you think about that?
We usually have just one guest on our podcast, and that's usually amazing enough for me. This felt like a party, having Dennis and Ryan and Nate with us, former guests, but being able to just celebrate moms together. Some great stories, some serious stuff, but also some funny stuff. What a great mix, and what a great mix of guys. Unique perspectives and experiences with moms, wives, ex-wives, all over the board. So it was a great episode, dude. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that we need to absolutely just grind in the fact that this episode's so important. I think that all of our listeners understand that without motherhood, daddyhood doesn't exist. And so we're so thankful for the moms in our lives and what they've meant to us. We're thankful for our listeners too.
Yes.
And I don't want to ever have an episode where we don't say that. This journey is a blast, but it's hard. And it wouldn't be worth it if it wasn't for our listeners. Quick little story before we wrap up. Brandon and I were in the middle of recording an outro tonight. And we often say that we're 2 5th-grade boys trying to do a podcast. And that reared its ugly head. This is actually our second outro tonight. So stay tuned for bloopers, because it really is. It's difficult sometimes. It's not just the lining up guests and lining up our hours and stuff like that. Sometimes it's the little stuff like recording. And so I'm thankful that I get to do this with my best friend. In fact, this outro right now that we're talking in, we promised each other that if we laughed, we were just going to keep going, because it got to that point. So I'm thankful that I get to do this with my best friend, because nobody else would be as understanding as he is.
Yeah, it's a blast, and we're doing some good stuff. We have some great guests for something super, super important to elevate daddyhood, not beyond motherhood, but to just help dads to engage and to level up and to have fun. And today we got to really put the spotlight on, though, the women in our lives who really mean something to us. And what a great day. As you're listening to this is Mother's Day. Whatever it is you're able to do might be a little limited with COVID. Who knows, unless you live in Indiana. But
COVID doesn't exist.
That's right. So whatever you're doing today, reach out and encourage the women in your life, whether it's your wife, the mother of your children, your mom, your grandmother, great grandmother, whoever it is, your extra moms. I definitely have some of those. Your mother-in-laws, whoever it is. Say thank you. Thank you to the women in your life. John, any last words before we wrap this puppy up?
I want to wrap this up in a different way. We always obviously end it with Daddyhood Rocks. This Sunday is about something different. And so I want to say thank you to all the moms out there. And I want to say thank you to all our listeners. Mommyhood rocks, and so do you.